Grüß Gott. So, sagen Sie Hallo in Bayern, wo Sie Bäuerische sprechen. That's how you say hello in Bavaria. Grüß Gott, it means greetings, God. Greetings, quote, or parentheses, in the name of God. Rather nice, I think. It's considered quaint. But for a few months, Bavaria was my home. Ich war daheim in Bayern. Yes, I lived in the mountains of Bavaria. It was wonderful. In the summer of, it was a while ago. Anyway, awesome place. It's better if you have tons of money. But still awesome. Hikes are neat. Great hiking. So here, let's get started. All right. Now, this is an archway somewhere in the region of Bavaria that is now gone. It almost looks like a backdrop behind it, but how cool is that? Piled up ruins. Roman ruins. Supposedly built in the 1800s. Yeah, right. Well, they're called Roman ruins, so everything's either built in the 1800s or built by the Romans. And they built stuff that looked like it would be Roman in the 1800s. Now this one, to me, this actually looks fairly new. But I'm somewhat undecided about it. The piles around there, I don't know. But it has that kind of new look to it. So, okay, I'm going to go into more depth about this later on. But there's the whole underground to consider. Huge warehouses of tons of stuff. And you have ye olde ladderline right there. Ye olde ladderline never fails. But the size and the immense proportions of the underground caverns are simply too much for words. The strata, the brickwork, these foundations, I mean, this is way under the ground. And that chandelier dangling there, and my goodness, the size of those stair steps. There is a lot going on in these photos. I read the captions underneath, and for the most part, I'm going to skip over that because that's the contemporary history. That's what we were told. That's what we're still told for the most part. There are some interesting things I'll point out along the way. And part of it is my French isn't that great, so there are some words I may misinterpret or not understand at all, and I would like to avoid that. Okay, so here, if you look at the ceiling, I found it interesting, but we'll go into depth about this at the end, okay? But it will give you something to which you may look forward. It's kind of like an M.C. Escher drawing, isn't it? That big chandelier. So yeah, all these, that'll repeat, but from now on, nothing repeats, okay? So this is the book. It is a photo book that seems to be specially printed, one of many, yet it doesn't have a number assigned to it. And we aren't going through all of it. We're just hitting mostly Bavaria, and Autriche, Austria. Okay, and then I think I might have slipped in one from Poland, or I think it's Poland. So most of it is in Munich. Yes, that's how you say Munich. And Munich is considered a pretty large region. A lot of it's built up now, but what was there before kind of stood out on its own in places. The size and scale and proportions, of course, are simply amazing to behold. It's obviously Greco-Roman. If you look at the rooftop and the edges, they're kind of crumbled. The stair steps going up to it are about twice, maybe more than twice as large as for regular people. Of course, they have a little section cut out for the wee people to go up, but as a general rule, and I've said this before, I'm going to say it again, the size of the blocks, the size of the bricks, the size of the stones, whatever it is that is piled up to make these buildings, if you picture a man carrying one in each hand, then you can gauge or judge the size of the man, right? So bricks today, your average man can easily hold a brick in each hand. That would be about appropriate for building a building, right? And a lot of these older buildings are built out of bricks on the inside, but then there are larger blocks and stones, and I'm not talking decorative, I mean throughout the whole building. So a lot of it is brick, so that would suggest that a lot of the buildings that are brick may have been built by men closer to our size. Now, you'll see many of these Greco-Roman structures, though, if they aren't made of bricks, they're made of blocks or stones that are much larger. Now, we use cinder blocks today, but they're hollow, and a man can stand and hold a cinder block in each hand. Your average man should be able to do that. I would say, yeah. So, the scale, the size of these structures, my goodness. And then how they're sitting out in the middle of nowheres. Out in the middle of nowheres. And look at that. The level is kind of high. It gets cold and snowy in Munich. You wouldn't want to slip on those steps. I wish I could read that sign up there. They say this was built in 1853. They always have a story about it, and I'm sure there is a story about it. I just am not inclined to believe the story that they give for reasons that were previously stated. But yeah, the fresco on that wall, that looks interesting too. Now this one they're calling ancient, but then they say it was constructed in 1836. And they say, oh, it's the style of the Renaissance, blah, 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 blah. All right, so again, the scale, the size, the roads. The roads are just overkill. Where are all the people, man? I know, they all went home because of the photo. But it's this way all over. I mean, just there are pictures of crowds from these times, but not very many. And of course, I'm assuming these photos really were taken in the late 1800s, but I don't know that for sure. I don't know. Okay, this is very interesting. La Palace de Verre. I'm guessing glass palace. Of course, every exposition had one. Now this one was disassembled from somewheres, I believe, and then reassembled perhaps here in 1854. Well, 1854 is really early. I'm thinking it was already there. I'm going to try to say already there instead of always there, because I think that may be misinterpreted sometimes. Always is almost never true. So it was already there from before. And if you look closely, you can see that if this photo was taken in, let's say, 1888, they don't know when it was taken. I think that it was collected in 1906 from somewhere. But I think there's some indication that some of the photos may have been taken in 1888. Either way, let's just think, okay, let's say it was taken in 1888 or 1906. If it was built in 1854, could it look this old by then? Well, maybe. But it looks pretty old. Of course, I'm sure it burnt down like the other ones. And I'm not kidding. Glass and steel. Burnt down. Mm-hmm. Oh, my. But, I want to go back. If you look at this closely, it seems there are some trees inside, because it was like an arboretum, is what they claimed that it was in the World's Fair. And the trees inside seem pretty large for something being so new. See that? I think that's a tree on the right side. Like, it's built higher. Now, I guess they could have constructed it around a tree, but why would they do that? Okay. This. I'm not going to make any jokes about genitalia. That is for the rocket scientists. Now, It does look... You put the wrong colors down on this, and it is going to look obscene. But that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is, well, the two things on the top. Is that an antenna? Is it a lightning rod? Is it a flagpole? Is it a Christian symbol? Is it denoting some kind of fluid, like pearl jam, whatever type thing? No, I hope not. I don't know what it would be other than some kind of a electromagnetic, either receiving or broadcasting antenna, or some kind of electrical cathode, I guess it would be. But here, the clocks. Are they for, like, is one like red and the other one's blue, and you wear 3D glasses and you see the clock right in front of your face? That's actually a good idea. I just came up with that. But I'm sure that's not what it is. I'm sure that we're supposed to believe that those are two clocks, and they're each set to the local time, and they both ran because it was too hard for people to turn their head, about 4 degrees left or right. So when they looked up in the general direction, then they would see the time. Maybe they would think they had double vision. I don't know. Seems strange. I think that's not for clocks. I really don't think that. It seems stripped down. It seems far too large. Look, it has skylights, and it's just so out of place compared to everything around it. La Cathédrale, Frauenkirche of Notre Dame. So yeah, it's just huge. It just doesn't fit in. But just a scarcity of people. I know they're kind of blurred out. I get it. Stuff looks old. I know. I get it. But if you look over to the left, well, first of all, if you look to the upper right, looks like that eye, all-seeing eye type thing. But the size of that building, my gosh. And it's empty, of course. A lot of these are empty. The window covers are pulled. Or sometimes there's no glass. You can just see right through, all the way through the floors there. But on the left, I want to point out to you the wonderful concrete curb that we have noticed before. The same construction method as found in Jamaica and in the United States and all over the world in that time period. And you have this fence to the left that is typical of what I've seen in these. It seems like they have the cities districted off so that certain areas of the city were off limits, and they would have these fences. And I think as they repopulated these cities, they kept people squeezed into certain areas so it would seem to be appropriate. And then who knows what reason they had for the rest of the city, to be empty and fenced off, but they do that stuff. Supposedly something like 600,000 people lived in the area at the time, and that seems way higher than what is the case by the photographic evidence. Oh yeah, the Rathaus. That's like your courthouse. It's not the house of rats, although it depends on your perspective. So they say it's in the style of the Germans. Now, this is supposedly the chariot for King Ludwig II. The guy who built Neuschwanstein, I think. The one the castle in Bavaria that looks like the Disney castle. But my goodness, is that not over the top gaudy? It's gaudy, I'm telling you. It would even be called kitschy and gaudy in New Jersey. In Jersey, that's what they would say. Now that's gaudy. This is cooler, though. I mean, it's still a bit gaudy, but it is kind of like a Santa's sleigh thing. It's very quaint, and I'm sure things like that, it seems like they're almost never actually used. They're so cool, and it would be so neat. And you picture, the king in the snow, and he's being taken to his woman's whatever, but in reality, the king never used it. He was homosexual anyway, I think. The romantic thing of whatever it was, what didn't happen the way you may have pictured it, I'm sure. Now here's this big gate. These things are all over. The Arc de Triomphe, it's La Porte de la Victoire. So I personally think they were part of some kind of a standard building, perhaps. The gates of the city, referred to in the Bible so many times. And when they say in the gates of the city, I think they do mean in. I think these are actually buildings, and, well, they're somewhat hollow. You can go up in them. And the writing on the top seems out of place and contrived to the print, whatever it was. So this is supposedly kind of like we're bumping over to Austria for a bit. In Vienna, it seems a little bit off kilter with like what you would consider, I think it's a theater, I guess. Okay. It almost seems like a church to me. Yeah, it's a theater. What's it say? Stiftungshaus? Okay. The Writers Theater, like the Players Theater, I guess. I don't know. Look at the teeny tiny people next to it. And there were theaters like this in the Midwest. They're mostly torn down. Some of them were called like Paramount Theaters. Stuff's all over the world. Vienna, 800,000 population, and then 1.2 million. I don't know the word. And it's probably talking about how many people it could accommodate. I mean, it's just, these buildings are so massive. I think the capacity of many of these cities has actually gone down in the same areas because of this. These buildings were so huge, some of them. Well, Europe, they don't build skyscrapers. They already had them, basically. Yeah, these cathedrals, they're just, nobody's building that. Nobody's building anything like that today. Come on. Those twin towers, the two towers, seems electrical to me. And then you have these dome buildings. What is it? Is it an observatory, or this is a theater, I guess. But it looks just like the one in Cleveland. They're all over. Fabulous buildings. I mean, just that building, like the size of it's really quite huge. And then I noticed, look at the tracks there, and I thought, are those like rail tracks? But they're not. It's like a rail car being pulled by horses, and it's on like wheels. It's leaving like tire tracks, like tire tread when you look closely at it. But yeah, I mean, just that little bip at the top there, that little doohickey bipper there, that's like a one-bedroom studio apartment way up there. You could walk around. Yeah, see that cart and the tracks left behind by that like wagon. I thought maybe that was like a vehicle that was out of time there, but in another picture I saw it was being pulled by horses. But look at the size of the building. Incredible. And the size of the statues and these memorials. I mean, could these people even really appreciate the details of the statue there? Not really. And those balustrades, I guess they're called, bulwarks or whatever they are, holding the chain. I mean, they're as big as the men. They're so solid. What in the world is going to disturb these statues? Well, I think they may be tombs. The pedestal that the horse is on, it may be a tomb, and there may be giant bones in there, unless they took them, which they probably wouldn't have. But yeah, what horse and buggy is going to require that size of, like, in those chains? Who makes chains like that? I mean, everything that the former civilization did was like over the top, awesome craftsmanship. And then these reliefs, these depictions, they're always like Roman. Like, weren't the Bavarians just totally harassed, and the Romans hassled them like crazy? They wouldn't be all like using Roman numerals and writing things in Latin, and then, oh, we're carving this thing in the 1800s. We are going to carve like these Roman people who treated us like crap for hundreds of years until we finally got rid of them and formed our own governance. And so here you start to get into these like governmental buildings, like the biggest buildings. They're just so huge. And then what is it about? What is it for? Well, it's just a governmental office building is basically what they say. And here's another opera. Horses and buggy people built that. Yeah, right. Here's another cathedral. I thought the rooftop was very interesting, and just, it's Gothic, just very almost Baroque with the detail. It's huge. It's so ornate. It's so, and a lot of this stuff's gone, unfortunately. Munich didn't get hit so hard as the other cities, like Berlin and Dresden. They were just wasted. Stuttgart wasted. Did nothing to end the war much. Just, you know, it's a tragedy. I hope that one's still there. See, I didn't check all that stuff, but these types of things are around, but I don't recall seeing that. Look at these horses and buggy people. Yeah, they built that. Do they remember building that? I'm sure that they don't. You know, maybe that little shed-looking thing next to it, but probably not even that. I don't even know what the roof is made of. There's some things in here that look like sheet metal rooftops too. So these fountains were being used. They have hoses in them, and the hoses pumped. It pumped the water out. So it's like a spring somehow. And then if you look at the lampposts, they have these like metal, kind of flaccid, penile looking things sticking out of the ground on three sides, kind of angled towards it. And then they're so high, like if you're making lamps that you have to fill with oil and you have to light the wick, and it's outside with the wind blowing, and it's going to have a bunch of soot all over the glass around it that protects it from the breeze. And how in the world, how did all that stuff work? I think it was bullcrap. I think it was electric. Because where's the soot? You know, I don't know. Maybe they had a really good system set up, but somebody had to come along with poles or a ladder and work those things all the time. Wouldn't they just put them down a little bit lower? I mean, it's just an oil lamp or a kerosene or whatever lamp light. It's not going to put out that much light, so putting up higher isn't going to really make it improve the visibility that much, I don't think. So this looks like a staging area. It's like an auction or something, you know. Like, welcome. We are going to assign a place for you. You've graduated out of the cloning center underground, and you are a Bavarian German now, and get to it. We've assigned a job for you, shoveling horse manure. That will be what you do for the next 3 years until further notice, and there you go. The fountains are just so huge. Like, what's the point? Always the vanilla skies, and then there's something going on in the top middle, but could just be damage to the photograph. But look at the puny people. They don't belong there. They have all these buildings. Why are they setting up shop outside? Well, because they're just getting things going, maybe. Everything's stripped down, you know. And then the rooftop has some interesting like symbols and things on it. Seems kind of hackneyed compared to everything else. Oh, and then this little pedestal thing looks a little different from the other ones. I thought maybe that one was like Phoenician. And it's got like a mudflood depiction, you know, people going down into the earth, liquefied earth, the empty night, and yeah, angels with horns, and then the liquefaction of the earth. Huge building up on the hill. Huge building in the middle ground and even in the foreground. So we'll take a look there. Dem Bayerischen Heere. Dem Bavarian guys. Okay, so then there's a guy up there, and I think he's got lions pulling his chariot. That's a badass dude there. We got 4 male lions pulling his chariot. You can't get a cat to do anything you want. How does he do that? Those are some skills, man, I'm telling you. But yeah, that arch, it looks so old. That's the one we showed before. Dem Bavarian guys. Dem Bayerischen Heere. It's of the Bavarian men. Yeah, so the trees look like newly planted. And then I think you do have rails. I don't think they officially had rails running, like electrical rails, but they certainly had the actual rail lines. They weren't parallel, they weren't straight, so they must have been disused. They kind of dug out from the mud that looks like it was up probably to like the second part of those columns. And that's why they had to plant new trees in a lot of places. Piles of leaves maybe there, I don't know. 1850. Keeps coming up. It's all centered like 1850s, you know. Then you have one of these like colonnades or porticos. They're just kind of pointless buildings. We don't know what they were for, but I think they had a purpose that is just taken away, hidden. It's just this like open air place with huge steps, huge doors. They redo the steps to make them smaller. Sometimes you can see the original steps. Huge statues. They construct it and no one's looking at it. Nobody does anything with it. What's the point? 48 columns. I mean, it just takes so much work. I mean, where's the payback? Well, they'll make up a story. The king wanted it. He made the people do it. And, yeah, I suppose it's possible. Why not? It looks kind of old, you know? Man, these people are small compared to that. And, man, the former civilization, they always look kind of like Lady Justice, you know? And then there's a lion, little kitty cat lion to them. They didn't worry about the lions. They were so big. Those were the kitties. Little kittens. So here you have Munich, and then yeah, so you have this Maxim Museum. Looks kind of empty, hollow, huge, out of proportion. There you have the rails, but you have horses pulling carts. Oh, it's Maximillennium. Okay, so that must have been supposedly for the exposition. I don't know. Oh, it was built for... It was formed... it's a superior school. Okay. Formed for the public school, I guess. I don't know. Whatever. It's not really being used, it looks like. People standing around. At least there's some people around there. They got piled up wheels, and I don't know what that is. It kind of looked like a weird machine at first to me. Like, looks like an elephant leg, and then it's got like a Dalek type top to it, and then it's got these like sticks coming out with wheels on it. Could be like hand carts or something. I don't know, it's hard to tell. It looked interesting to me though, I tell you. So you get this, oh yeah, this little spire. Was that a flagpole? No. What is it? Lightning rod? Maybe, but why does it have those two knobs on it? Always those two knobs. I think it's an antenna. Broadcast receiving. Maybe electrical gathering. I don't know. But I'm going to find out. Here you have an octagon. Octagons seem to be a thing. Maybe electrical gathering. I don't know. But I'm going to find out. Here you have an octagon. Octagons seem to be a thing. 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 Octagons seem to And if you're just joining me and you have no idea what the heck, look, I just look at the pictures and interpret them using somewhat of what I've learned, some of what or a lot rather of what I think, and I'm not taking the word of the official historical authorities who claim to know, though they have not been there. They weren't there when it was built. They don't know. And I admit I don't know. And I'm not just going to parrot what they say about it, what year it was built. I mean, shit, how did they build all of this in between 1830 and 1865? They built all this shit? No way. Look at all the overgrowth there. And the scale, why would they build it to that scale? Because they love them stairs. They hear about stairs and they salivate and they say, just show it to me now. I got to do those stairs. And they just go up and down the stairs. Oh, I love it. Stairs. I mean, you can't tell me that building was fully occupied. That shit's empty, man. It has to be. All the windows, all of them are shut up, you know. It's a big hotel, yeah, because of all the people. They need to have that hotel. Look how busy it is, you know. Vienna. Oh, the size. Yeah, there are those tracks I was showing you, talking about. I mean, there's like a cart rolling along, people hanging on the back. Then this thing got, I don't know if they dropped that or what the heck that thing is. This is like it's the snake that wraps around the medical pole to let you know how wholesome that stuff is. It got left behind. The pole kind of jumped out or something. I don't know. There's a hand cart. There's a dude moving around there. He got a little blurred. These lamps are all over the place. Who's going around lighting all those lamps? Nobody. Looks like maybe there's some smoke coming out of that chimney, so that's a first. I haven't seen much smoke here. That looks like a little train car almost. Like, were they supposed to actually have that at that time? I don't know. An electric tram, probably. So here's the Rathaus, the courthouse. But yeah, these government buildings were so huge. I mean, just crazy huge. Birdies flying around. Just huge. All the antennas. Dinky people. And then you have wide spaces in front. Hardly anybody there, of course. Midday, you know. Best time to photograph is like in the afternoon. And where are all the people, man? You build buildings like this, you have to have you have to justify it. Here they have like a little parade going down the road. It's like an elementary school could put together a bigger parade than that. An elementary school could do a much better job of a parade. And look at the buildings, and that's what these... Where are the people watching the parade? Oh, they're over there on the left. Okay. Funny. All right, so there's that wagon thing being pulled by a horse. Okay. Amazing. Whoa. What is that? I don't know. Oh, big ramp going up. Seems weird. Just seems odd to do that. Is that how they built it? That's how they designed it? No. I mean, oh, that's a hose, water hose. And they're watering the trees they just planted because there were no trees there. Because the whole place was wiped out and buried. They had to dig it out. And here the water's coming out of the ground. They have plumbing. And they're watering, this soil or whatever, sand or white dust from the dustification of the previous civilization. I don't know. The size of these buildings. I don't want to repeat, but that lamp looks interesting. Let's get a look at that. Like, what the heck? Is that a gas lamp? Is that a kerosene lamp? To me, it looks like an electric arc lamp. That's what I think it is. It's an electric arc lamp. I'm almost certain. They'll tell you that they didn't have that back then, but that's what that is. I guarantee. I mean, they did officially have it back then, but they didn't supposedly have it in use until like the late 1800s. Late. For traffic. Well, maybe that's it, but my gosh, what are the odds? Oh, this. Okay, so this is what? Okay, we're in Vienna now again, but the palace of some dude. Okay, so what are those? Steps going to the palace? No, that's a fountain. Okay. Big, huge, everything. Huge, huge. People walking out like, I don't know what to do with myself. I'm just standing around here, walking on this fine gravel. It's this big, huge building. And nobody lives in it, nobody uses it, and then there's this like weird like no girls allowed treehouse clubhouse shanty shack thrown together in the front where the troll lives. He says, "You shall not pass," because you can't go in there and see what's inside of this and find out the truth about its origins. That's a theory. Here we see tons of insulators and wires because they had telegraphs, yeah. And it's not any other kind of electricity. Well, how did the telegraph's energy travel? Electricity, well, all right, never mind. So we have all these fountains and these memorial buildings, Frühlingsstrasse or something like that. The cathedral we looked at, but we can zoom in a little bit here. Dinky, tiny people that did not build that. Wow. And they're just kind of lined up. I guess they were going to church. Okay, great. Yep, that's where I got that screenshot. Now, here's like a weird like Moroccan village type thing, but it's way out of scale. And you can see that there was a building there that was just huge that's made of small bricks. So I guess, you know, big people could use small bricks, kind of like Legos. Building a place like that. Now, what are those things on the top? What is it? Is it Mohammedan? Well, officially, the Mohammedans didn't control the area, so it wouldn't be that, would it? I'm not aware of them getting that far north or whatever, but okay. Well, it was part of the Ottoman Empire, I guess, at one point, and fits Vienna. I thought we were in Munich, though. Well. So inside you see, okay, well, they put something together there. That's cool. Domes, cool. All right, fine. But if you go up, oops, sorry, I gotta scroll. I wanted to stretch this out a little bit. Oh, I can't. Well, if you go up, it goes on and on. It's just huge inside. Here's one of those colonnades. What do you do with that? What goes on there, you know? I guess it's cool. I love it. I just don't see why people who are so much struggling, they're spending all their time doing the washing and darning their socks and stitching every little patch onto things, and they build these buildings. No way. That's electrical, I'm telling you. All right. Ye olde ladderline. There it is. Ye olde ladder leaning against the wall. But yeah, this like ruins in the middle of the city where they're building these other things. Interesting. It's kind of buried, you know, definitely buried. That clock probably doesn't work. I mean, that tower is out of place, even with the other massive, immense structures. I must ask the question, what in tarnation's going on around here? There's a whole bunch of lamps together. They have the rail lines. People are scarce to be found, and when you do find them, you're like, holy crap, are those people? They're so tiny. Now here they're gathered up in like a uniform. What is it, a parochial school? And they're watching like a shadow play, like Punch and Judy, or, you know, something like that. I'm guessing like a puppet play, supposedly. Now these are the controlled people. You can tell by their Spartan clothing. Everything's like a uniform. They're all herded around like cattle, and they don't have the fancy stuff that the controllers have. Now this building, brick castle-like building, first of all, I want to point out it's buried. It's not built at that level. And if you look at closely, that is, they have these like abutments, or I guess balustrades is the word, I don't know, kind of cordoning it off, because there's a steep drop on the edge, because it has been kind of excavated, like, you know, when you're trying to seal the basement or trying to let it breathe, because it wasn't meant to be buried up to that level. Of course, the question is, how did it get buried in so much dirt and mud, and why, and what happened? And, well, we're finding out. We're slowly getting there, folks, but we'll get there quicker if we keep researching. So keep the comments coming. And then here again, okay, the artwork, and they're doing like these Romanesque things. I mean, come on. Just, yeah, that one looked kind of new, but it could just be pristine, perhaps. It looks like maybe they shot blasted it or sand blasted it. Maybe that accounts for all the piles of, looks like maybe sand. Okay, so now we're getting into the underground before we wrap it up. It's like treasures, and it's like drawn because the person got to see it or hear about it in detail, but not take photos. Perhaps because it was too dark to take the photos, but they did a pretty good job drawing what they saw. They even drew, yes, that's right, ye olde ladder leaning against the wall. Ye olde ladder lean. And the ceiling is like strange, like it was a building. What it is, I mean, all you have to do, let's go back and look at this. There you go. See that building? Okay. But on a larger scale, they go down into the ground, and it just keeps going on and on. There's a whole city down there. And the further down you go, the bigger that stuff gets for a while. Because you get to, these are into the like antediluvian, and there's technology down there, and there's all kinds of stuff hidden from us. And there's clearly, you know, this is what is left from like Noah's flood. There are materials there, stones like glass, metals, things that we don't know how they made them. You haven't seen it because it's hidden, but you're seeing it now, a little bit of evidence. I mean, look at the reflections in that. What is it supposed to be? Polished marble, just sloped like that? And then like these rail lines going down, and then there's like a cart or a bench. Like, what in the heck? And look how they get in there. Whoever made their way in there at first, and they have to light it up and build all these oldie ladder leans to get down. And they have these like safety catch platforms. It must have been terrifying, but so cool to discover this. I mean, it'd be like when they say go to Mars, go underground, find ancient civilizations of life. I mean, they could just put people in there and tell, hey, you're on a ship to Mars, and put them in there, and they'll think that they are there. Mars. I mean, because look at that, and look at the chandelier. Who hung that chandelier, and why is it so big? Well, it's just left over. This is just somebody's house. Somebody who happens to be 30-some feet tall or thereabouts. I know it's insane. It sounds insane, but they dug this out for mining, and they just kind of built on it. No, look at the right, the top middle right there is a, what is that? You know. That's just part of a building, and some of it's covered in like a facade and crumbled. Fascinating. So fascinating. It looks like Wikipedia in the top left. No. That's amazing. All right, folks. Thanks for watching.